On today's episode of The Strange Show, I had the great opportunity of interviewing Ansar Khan at this year's Gadget Repair Expo in Miami. Ansar Khan is the VP of Sales and Marketing for RepairDesk, a Pakistani-based software company empowering repair shops like mine globally to automate tickets, invoices, and inventory. We've used RepairDesk since 2018, and I have personally built a great friendship over the years with Ansar. Today's sponsor is my company, XiRepair. If you need your device repaired or data recovered, check out XiRepair.com. We are a Y-certified provider that can help you fix your cell phone, tablet, computer, laptop, and game console. We offer an industry-leading warranty and have successfully repaired over 40,000 devices since 2018. Now on to my conversation with Ansar. So tell me a little bit about your position in RepairDesk. I know you work at RepairDesk, but what's your official title for those that don't know, and kind of what's your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm our VP of Sales and Marketing. So I have the pleasure of working with all of our wonderful customers all over the globe, really. We've got customers in over 70 countries. And my job is to educate them on what RepairDesk can do for their business and primarily build a baseline of efficiency. But after that, help them to actually improve their revenue and profits. That's really what we're all about.
That's awesome. How is that? What is it like? And you manage all, you said 70 countries?
70 countries, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Would you say the majority of clients are in the US? What's the biggest market for you guys?
Yeah, so North America is one of our biggest markets. And then we do have a good presence in Western Europe, as well as Australia and New Zealand. So we're pretty much working 24/7 around the clock.
I know right now you guys have the integrations with US vendors. Is that something that's currently active for other countries, or is it in the works to maybe have European vendors integrated with RepairDesk for those that might be listening to this in other countries?
Yeah, great question. So we've got 2 integrations active in Canada. We have Mobile Centrics and Nexus Cellular in Canada. And we are launching 2 integrations in the UK very soon.
Nice. Yeah, that's big. I think right now, to me, that's definitely one of the biggest values of RepairDesk is having the ability to just pull up the SKU, search for the products directly in. For the longest time, anybody listening to this that maybe uses an alternative POS or used RepairDesk years ago before that was active, having your entire team have a consistent SKU creation method, like naming things the same, making sure that the part cost was correct, making sure that the images were available so maybe team members that aren't aware of what that part is or what it looks like can identify it when it comes in. Solving that problem like you guys did was a big win, I think, for people that use RepairDesk or might be looking for an alternative. So
Absolutely. So if you look at inventory management, it's one of the hardest challenges in small businesses. So I come from the restaurant POS world.
and especially our industry, because there's a bajillion parts. Mobile
Exactly.
Centrics is what, 25,000 SKUs?
Exactly.
Most restaurants are what, maybe a few hundred SKUs?
Yeah, and as you know, getting to where we are today was a journey. We had a bunch of different integration types, and eventually we settled on this because it's the simplest for us to maintain and adds the most value for our customers. So it was probably about a year's worth of development and iterating, and we're very happy with where we are today.
That's interesting. So, I do some development myself, and I'm interested to know when you guys were doing the inventory integration that you guys have now in RepairDesk, did you have to have conversations with some of the vendors that are currently on there in terms of getting everything to be compatible, right? Maybe certain vendors may not have SKUs listed the same way, or was there any difficulties in getting maybe some of the smaller vendors like you guys have integrated?
Absolutely. So what we did is we kind of figured out a model that worked for everyone. Luckily for us and for the industry, a lot of the vendors are on Magento. So
Yeah.
that makes things a bit simpler, just adds a layer of standardization.
Sure.
But yes, they had to make some changes. We made some changes, but now we've got a pretty good flow where we can get integrations done in as little as a week. So we're very happy about that, and that'll allow us to continue to add more integrations in the future.
Is there any vendor that you guys are working with that's not on Magento? Because I
I,
know MS, IG, I'm pretty sure Wholesale
PLP,
Gadgets
yeah.
is
I
Magento.
believe we have 1 or 2 Shopify integrations. I don't remember who that is, but I know
Sure,
we've done some other e-commerce platforms as well.
sure. That's really cool. Yeah. It's interesting that a lot of the vendors have gone the Magento route. Like, I know it's not really a repair desk related question, but is there a reason why you think that might have been that our industry shifted Magento rather than originally Shopify or other platforms?
Yeah, from what I've seen, my limited experience, open source, it's more customizable,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people are already familiar with WordPress, so it's just a natural progression. But I think the flexibility, right, because our industry is very different than say Amazon, right, or just retail. So
Yeah.
as you mentioned, a lot of SKUs, a lot of variants. So Magento deals with that pretty well.
One of the reasons so interesting enough, we started with a Shopify in 2018. Our second website iteration was a Shopify. And the reason we stopped was because Shopify at the time, if I recall correctly, had limitations and policy on what they would sell, like allow us to sell. And again, we're a lot different than the wholesalers, but for us as a retailer, we weren't allowed, if I can remember correctly, for used devices. It was kind of blurry about what was allowed, but more importantly, they didn't have meta fields, right? Like the ability to add, make and model information in like a formatted way. And I think Magento, from what I understood, kind of allowed them to do that earlier. Now we've kind of full circled and we're kind of going back to that old Shopify model in our own business because we have that ability to customize metadata, like make, model, compatibility, what the device it fixes and
Mhm,
stuff.
mhm.
So it is kind of funny how things kind of comes full circle in our industry.
Yeah, yeah, and I think for a lot of stores, I feel like WooCommerce or Shopify is the best option, right?
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
like you're
That's where
never
we
going to
were for
have
a long time.
25,000 SKUs, and if you do, at that point, you're a parts distributor. You're not a store anymore. So
Right,
at
right.
that point, you might want to go to Magento. But yeah, I think WooCommerce and Shopify are good options.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know you guys have RepairDesk 2.0, as you call it, kind of live now. What was the thought process going from 1.0 to 2.0? Like, what did you guys learn for the 6 years that you guys were essentially working on it or reiterating it, and why make the change? Like, what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, great question. So it was the whole goal was to rewrite large portions of the application in more modern languages and frameworks because we realized we had to do that to make the code more extensible and to make it easier for us to add new features. So as I'm sure as a power user, you've noticed we've been adding features a lot more frequently, and we've only been able to do that because we've refactored large portions of the application.
Were you guys like a JavaScript and went to TypeScript or
We
something, or
were a,
was
PHP shop
okay,
primarily, and
interesting.
then now it's mostly Node.js.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Those are good frameworks. Um, yeah, a lot of people I think don't realize how hard software development can be, right? I think all POS development companies, whether it's RepairDesk or some other competitor, they all get heat for, oh my gosh, why isn't this done yet? And it's always funny to me because I do a little bit more development, so I understand things take time. Was there some points where you guys just wanted to bang your head on the table throughout that journey, and maybe what was that like?
Oh yeah, not sometimes, a lot of times, and it's very difficult because you want to put in the work, but a lot of times you're refactoring large parts of the application just to end up with the same interface. Obviously, the back end is a lot better, a lot faster, but it allows us to do cooler stuff in our AWS environment. But you're just doing a lot of work for what seems like nothing, and
Yeah,
then you
and the customer doesn't
realize
see it. Yeah,
customer doesn't see it, but you realize the value of it much later on, right? So yeah,
sure.
there's a lot of hard choices had to be made. And I think we've done a very good job. And you're kind of seeing that in the new ticket interface that we're still improving. We're going to soon launch a new inventory listing page, which I think is live for a number of users, as well as an individual inventory item page that's coming out. Actually, that's live for all new users and coming out for existing users as well. So all those, if you really think about it, between the POS screen, which we've revamped, the ticket view, ticket listing, and the inventory view and listing, that's probably about 70% of the usage, right? So we've already done a lot of the hard work there. And now we're going back and looking at what other smaller features we either deprecate or improve. Because RepairDesk does, I think we're more than a POS system, we're more like a mini ERP system now. So trying to figure out how we can streamline that as well. Because we do have some features that are maybe only used by 40, 50 customers.
I'm
And
curious, what features do you think those are that are not used by the majority of
yeah, so
shops?
I know we have an internal wiki tool that's
Yeah,
probably only used by about 100
we
shops.
use it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because it's helpful for some customers, but like, we're never going to be able to compete with Notion or Confluence or one of the apps that is doing solely that. So those are decisions we have to make as to whether we completely deprecate it, or we just deprecate it for new users, or we build an integration with Notion or somebody else, right? So
For
those are
us,
all
we pointed to somewhere else, and that's what we've always recommended for our team is like, every software you have is not going to be able to be great at everything.
Yeah.
Like that's just not realistic. So we view RepairDesk as like our ticket management system. For those that don't know, we use RepairDesk, and we have that wiki page that just posts to our internal documentation system. And quite frankly, that's probably the best model to have because every repair shop is so wildly different, or repair company is so wildly different. You might have a tech depot that runs particular, very granular standard operating procedures that they want to have their own and post it in a Google document or post it in their own database somewhere. And that probably can never be integrated seamlessly in a repair desk without a ton of development. So I like the way it is currently. It's simple. It allows us to kind of be flexible when we didn't need to use an internal wiki when we were small, but now that we've grown, we can have a wiki that at least they know where to find it, right? The team can use one portal for the majority of things.
Absolutely. And that's why we're so focused on integrations, because if you compare us to any other POS system in the repair industry, and maybe other industries as well, we're the only ones who have over 40 integrations, right? Because we realize we're not going to be the best in class tool for everything. So let's connect to it. That way our users don't have to do double duty or manually input or update stuff. So that's why we're going to continue to improve our integrations, especially with tools like Zapier, and obviously providing our open API so stores can just customize stuff for themselves.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So I know currently the new interface has been one of the big changes. I like the layout, by the way. I want to talk about that because the old layout was not as efficient for a user perspective because it was kind of like, to put it mildly or easily, is like the technicians would have to be not only trained on how to use RepairDesk, but trained on the steps to use RepairDesk. If you create a ticket, you have to do this one. There might be multiple options, but you do this. You assign it to yourself. Then you click, start the timer. That would open up the pre and post checklist. Like there was a lot of other training that was necessary versus the new system. The workflow is almost automated in the sense of everything's viewable. I'm not having to open up multiple tabs to see the device passcode or serial number. It's right here in my face. The parts can be pretty easily added. For the feedback we've gotten from our own technicians is that they like the new layout.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do whenever we release a new feature, to just let people who aren't RepairDesk customers play around with it at a conference. And the new ticket interface has been a hit where people who've never seen it before can pretty much figure out 90% of the stuff.
Yeah, it's intuitive.
Automatically, as long as they're part of the repair industry. And if they had that experience, it's very intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned that not every part of RepairDesk is used by repair shops. I think that's a sad reality because I talked to a lot of people at this conference that are repair shop owners, and I really do think they're limiting themselves because they don't take advantage of things like the timer, right? Like it's a requirement in our store for every technician to start and stop the timer. We even have compensation models per se that we would like to at some point essentially say, if you don't do that part, we're not compensating you for that repair. And the reason for that is data collection. We want to be able to see who is most efficient and what are some of the averages for particular devices. So when we can see outliers that might take an extra long time and figure out why that was. Was it an inefficient technician, or was it just a device that we radically underestimated the labor cost on? And little things like that, I would recommend any shop that maybe is not thinking that big or thinking that there's value to be used in these little tiny features.
Yeah.
There really is. Pre and post pictures is another great one.
Yeah.
A lot of people might do pre and post check, and it might be pretty short. Like, does it power on? Is it cracked? Ours is probably, I think, 20 or 30 at least checkpoints.
Okay.
So it's pretty time consuming, but that gives us the protection of warranties, right? If someone had liquid damage or the something mild, like the camera wasn't working or the back camera, we can verify that and go back and have also images to show the customer, no, we didn't crack that, we didn't break that. It happens all the time. Customers essentially try to scam you.
Absolutely.
Or maybe they're just unaware. Their mom picked it up, right? And the mom didn't ask the right questions, or the husband. and gives it to her and just says, I don't know, I picked it up like that, right? And doesn't explain, it allows us to kind of be like, look, here's what it looked like before. This is what we tested. I promise you, we're not scamming you or anything. Your device was already cracked on the back glass when it came in. And so I really appreciate those features inside of RepairDesk a lot as a shop owner.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So interestingly, one of the most common requests that we get at these expos is customers are like, hey, our repair desk setup doesn't have the images for the manufacturer. And, while that's a nice to have, it's not really going to help them run their business better. So it'd be very nice if more store owners thought like you and focused on the other core features that would add a lot more value. So that's what we try to do. I think half our job here is educating existing customers on what else they can use repair desk for. So it's an uphill battle at times, but we're making progress every day on that.
I think that particular one is an interesting question because whether the images are of value or not, I do think there's one of my biggest frustrations as an industry, and it's not necessarily a repair desk responsibility or problem to fix it, but is standardization. We don't have, the vendors do not have a good standardization, meaning, if you compare the phone repair world to the auto repair world, there is tiers of part quality, right? Even in people might say, well, there's like a grade B OEM pool and a grade A, but the issue is that there's massive differences between Mobile Centric's grade A and maybe someone random seller on eBay's grade A. And as an industry, I think we ought to do a better job, everyone together, to have standard labor rates for repairs, to have standard tiers of part quality, even if that means that the companies can't distinguish themselves a little bit like the way they want to now, like they really want to have their own branding for everything. I would argue that we will sell more parts and thus the vendors will make more money if we all standardize just a little bit more, so that there is kind of, no matter which shop you're going to in the US, whether they're using RepairDesk or not, an LCD quality screen, there might be one or two variances, but on average, that's a tier, 3 screen, and the labor price and part price is probably going to be pretty consistent no matter where you go. I think that's kind of the next level we get to, and hopefully as an industry we can work on a project like that. RepairDesk could take what we do, maybe even help us, and then add the images or add a little bit more standardization to the device models and services that are offered. Because it is really fascinating. Like if you, at a granular level, if you ask a customer, like, what is included in a charging port replacement, my shop's charging port replacement will probably be different in terms of the supply. Like, do you put back the water resistant seal? Is that something that's included? As an industry, are we going to do what XiRepair does? And we say we charge extra for that. We believe that if we put back that water resistant seal, if I have to buy the tools and the presses to make that phone water resistant, take the extra 10 or 15 minutes to do it. And truthfully, it's not a required component. The screen still goes back without it. I'm going to charge you $15 for it. And my argument would be, as an industry, we should do that. And then obviously be transparent to customers and say, look, if you want this to be water resistant, you should probably pay this extra fee for this one other component that you need on it. But I think having questions like that and conversations like that help you guys in the long term. But as an industry, I definitely think something we should work on.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like otherwise it's a race to the bottom.
Absolutely.
I was recently in Canada in the Mississauga area visiting one of our shops, and while I was there, this lady came in and she was haggling the price of a screen protector, and she didn't want to pay more than $8 and she wanted it to be installed as well. And at that point, it's like, why even bother, right? So I feel like if you have that standardization, that education, and she will, if she gets the same price from or a similar price from a couple different stores, it'll be better for her in the long run, because anyone doing that job for $8 is probably not going to do a very good job either, and they're probably not going to use something that'll actually protect your phone.
When I started in the industry, I had the mindset too of like, I'll just undercut everybody around me. I'm just, I'm a solo guy. I'm making 6 figures a year. I'm doing great. I don't care. I can charge $40 labor rates and make more money than anybody around me. But then as you start maturing in business, you realize like that's not scalable. You're going to either die a single employee shop owner and be miserable, or you're going to probably charge a little bit more, add a lot more standardization, compete on price and value. And hire employees and pay for their workers' compensation and insurance plans, right?
Exactly.
And give them benefits. And if you do that, suddenly you're not just competing with the guy out of his car. Yeah. I hope as an industry we're getting close to that level of maturity. I have confidence that I think we can get there. But you're right. If you look at like the HVAC world or auto repair world, they're so standardized. I mean, Mitchell One is a similar company to RepairDesk in the auto repair world. They are essentially the same thing. You know, they're integrated with their suppliers. If you, they're to the point, if you buy something on Mitchell One, like I think more than 50% of auto repair shops, independents in the country, use Mitchell One. And if you purchase oil or tires or anything, and it's not something you have in stock through Mitchell One, it's delivered to your store. And the reason is that Mitchell One is owned by AutoZone and O'Reilly Parts, right? That the vendors actually purchase the software companies. But I bring that up because originally the company was actually a book back in the 80s. It was a motor book. So before the parent company of Mitchell is Motor Company, and they would sell these books in the 80s that you would flip through. You know, you'd find Ford or Chrysler, and then 1984, and then you'd find the F-150 pickup, and then you would look for rotation and tire balance or oil change, and it would tell you how many hours of labor the repair should be, and the average markup on the parts. And so they took that model, built Mitchell One, and now no matter where you go in the country, the labor rates may be cheaper in Alabama and more expensive in DC, but on average, you're still getting charged 1 hour of labor for that repair no matter where you go. And I think that's where our industry has to go. I think we really have to standardize it. I talked to insurance companies like ACO yesterday is a great one, and it's difficult for them to have consistent claims processes, and by extension, be able to make a budget for their companies, because one repair shop's $500 for the same screen and another is $200, right? And there is no standardization to point to and say, well, no, this is how long it should be. This is how long the repair should take. This is the average markup that should be a fair markup no matter where you are. So to your point, I agree that I hope that's where we can go, and RepairDesk can obviously help us in that world too. What are some of the features that you guys are working on in the future? Like, could you talk a little bit about maybe ideas that you guys have for future roadmaps, or just things you might want to help customers be enabled to do?
Yeah, we've got a lot of ideas. Time is the only constraint, so I'll talk about some of the stuff that we added recently. So we added an integration with M360. We recently improved our QuickBooks integration. The one of the main things we added there was automatic refund. So whenever you process a refund within RepairDesk, it instantly updates in QuickBooks as well, which has been a fan favorite. We're also adding additional support for WooCommerce and Shopify integrations. And primarily there, we're introducing support for variants. So it's easier. You can pretty much sell whatever you have without having to produce a separate inventory item for each type of phone that you have, for each color of phone that you have with a specific model. In the next quarter, we're looking at a couple of cool things. As I mentioned, some of the international integrations that we're working on. We're also enhancing some of our marketing tools and adding some additional features of Phone Pro. The inventory section is going to be much faster and much quicker for managers and employees to use. There's a couple other things that I can't remember, but if you don't know, we do a monthly newsletter as well as a quarter newsletter whenever we come up with new features. So we always keep everyone updated.
The M360 partnership, I was aware of all of the ones except that one. I think I had seen a newsletter about it, but I didn't get a chance to read it. Could you talk a little bit about maybe what that is and how it benefits shops?
So they're one of the leading providers of diagnostics. So whenever you do a diagnostic test now, it automatically links it to the ticket. And you can have a pre and post repair diagnostic report attached to the ticket. So to what you were saying, right, it's even easier to say, hey customer, here's all the information. And they actually also generate a customer facing report. So you can print it out or email it to them. That way it's like, look, we emailed this to you 20 days ago. It's in your inbox and water damage is right on there. So, or, here was the crack that we mentioned, or the gyroscope wasn't working. So not only the external stuff, but also all the internals. So you can just point that out.
Does that automatically change the checkboxes in pre and post, or is it just a separate report posted in notes?
It's a separate section. So if you're using the integration, you don't need to use the checklist because it'll add everything, and then you do have the ability, as you know, to add free-flowing notes in the ticket. So you can do that to supplement. But honestly, they're pretty good. Like their diagnostics are very good. So you don't really need to add additional information.
Is there a per charge for each phone that comes in, or is it a monthly fee with them?
It's a great question. So I believe I know RepairDesk customers get a 20% discount off the subscription, and they have a couple different plans. And some of the plans do have a per device cost. Some don't.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the time savings you probably would incur as a repair shop owner, rather than your technician spending 5 or 10 minutes testing each device, would probably justify any cost. That's how we've always looked at it.
Yeah.
We use phone check in store for our buybacks. We don't use it for our technicians currently, but it's a similar checklist that goes through, and it automatically takes the pictures and everything, and it's madly efficient compared to doing it manually.
Yeah, and same thing. A lot of our stores only use it for buybacks as well, but it's up to you, right? I think customers in more touristy locations or that are getting a variety of phones and a variety of customers, probably good to have that as a sort of insurance, also to protect against chargebacks. Right? It's just a more official looking report than, say, a checklist in RepairDesk.
True.
And as you know, dealing with MasterCard and Visa is never fun.
Very
and
true.
the customers who usually do chargebacks are looking to exploit you. Right? Like I haven't had the need to do a chargeback in 10 plus years. Right? So I guess maybe I've gotten a bit lucky as well. But I think there are people who are repeat offenders out there.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a fan favorite whenever their warranty's denied.
Yeah.
um, I currently don't use the feature inside of RepairDesk, which is you guys might call it RepairDesk Pro, or I can't remember the branding name for like the phone calls and all of those integrations. Could you maybe talk about that a little bit? Because again, I don't use that feature, so it's hard for me to tell the value to people that maybe don't already have a VoIP phone service and don't have kind of like a text messaging system built into their company.
Yeah.
I think they could get a lot of value from it.
Absolutely. So there's a bunch of benefits, but I'll highlight the three big ones. Number one is like fully integrated. So if someone's calling you, you know who they are before you pick up the phone, so you can greet them, right? Hey, John, how's it going? It's a much more personal connection that you can build. Secondly, you are texting and calling from the same number, which is nice because if you send somebody a text, all they have to do is call back, right? So we see a lot of stores who don't use Phone Pro or our SMS. They're texting from a different number, and it just creates confusion. You can forward your SMS number to your main phone number, but it's still a little choppy. And then lastly, I think is control and quality control and automation. So, right, if you want, all the calls can be recorded and transcribed within RepairDesk attached to the ticket. So the benefit of that is
I didn't know about the transcription. That's a big one. It's hard to go back and listen to it.
Exactly.
And if it's transcribed as an owner, if I go back and look at the ticket and see my technician said, F you, I don't want you coming in my shop. We're gonna have a little conversation at the end of the day,
Yeah.
And
some
really
of our
helpful.
chains are using it where they're being very proactive in quality controlling every day because they know if their technicians or their front desk people answer the phone a certain way, it's going to increase their conversion rate, right? So it gives you that control.
Do you guys allow for port-ins for numbers?
We do. Yeah, we manage that entire process. As you may know, porting can be a bit of a pain. We've kind of mastered it over the years, so we've gotten pretty good at it where you submit a form as long as the information is correct, the phone number and the PIN. It'll normally take 24 to 72 hours depending on the carrier, but it gets done pretty smoothly. And then we schedule a cutover date and time, and then we go ahead and do that. There's a lot of other smaller benefits like a fully customized IVR. Your shop can sound a lot more professional, and we'll help you set all that up as well.
You said NVR?
IVR.
IVR.
Meaning that the messaging systems, right? So press 1 for sales, press 2 for support.
Gotcha.
So all that stuff can get set up.
Like auto attendant features and stuff like that. Okay,
Exactly.
gotcha. I didn't know that's what IVR was. That's what it was called.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know what it stands for, but that is
would
the
make sense.
acronym.
Yeah, interesting. Something video, voice recording, internet voice recording, maybe something like.
Yeah, we could
something
probably
like that.
virtual. I was going more towards something virtual receptionist.
Probably internet virtual receptionist. I can see that. Do you guys think that anytime soon, I know there's a lot of conversations about AI being integrated with phone calls services. Is that something that is in the thought process currently with RepairDesk, and any ideas on maybe how as a shop owner we can automate that phone call process? Because every day when I am in my stores and I might fill in for a manager that's not working that day or something, I think I get frustrated because as a technology developer, I'm constantly in my operation thinking, how do I automate this process? And the one that's the most frustrating to me is the phone calls because it should be the simplest one, and yet it doesn't feel to be. It seems to be very difficult to automate collecting first name, last name, phone number, email, and then just asking what device you have, identifying it if we can't, and then giving you a part and labor that's connected to the problem, like a solution to the problem you have. Right, that's how we train people, and it's really easy to train someone to do that and give them a spreadsheet that shows the parts that solve this particular issue. If it's a cracked screen, it's an OLED display. If it's charging port's not working, it's a charging port replacement, so on and so on. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on how, as an industry, we can automate that? And is something you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, so we have a lot of thoughts. We're doing a lot of research. It is very hard to implement AI at scale that's actually useful and compliant with all the different laws. So, for example, just data masking and transcriptions is a big thing, right? Because we have some customers who collect sensitive information over the phone, right? Driver's license number for a buyback,
Device passcode, maybe
or
even.
device passcode, as well as credit card numbers. So, doing that properly is very tough. And also, as you know, right, different states have different recording laws. One party consent or all party consent. Then, because we have customers in Europe, GDPR, and right, it becomes an issue. So it's something that we are working on. We will do it. I'm sure very soon. In the next 1 or 2 quarters, we'll start to release some features. I know we're working on some stuff right now, but it's just something that it can be done in a flashy way where you have AI features, but they don't really add much value. So we want to do it in a way where it is effective and actually helps store owners, because we do believe there is a big, even enterprises, they're not fully adopting AI today. So for small businesses, I feel like it adds a lot more value because it can help you save a lot more money and be a lot more efficient. But it's just a matter of doing it properly.
Yeah, and it may be something too that as an industry we may need to work on um, part and labor standardization first. Because like in our own business, I think I've shown you what we were working on, where it's customers the homepage of our site is make, model, issue, right? Those three questions in a systemized format can, through AI or just through technology, connected to a database, automatically populate the solution for the customers. We've done that at our own store and operations, but I think our industry can do it at scale, and then that data can be fed to a RepairDesk or fed to whatever database you're using to really automate it. And if we don't do that first, I don't think we can solve maybe the AI problem or use AI to solve that problem because there's no data for it to be fed to. Um, yeah, I'm excited for that because I think one of the biggest problems as industry is shop owners that we face is just people, right? Having good, well-trained, knowledgeable, keyword there, knowledgeable staff members is a struggle. Finding technicians can be difficult as well. But surprisingly, I talked to a lot of people that say I can't find techs. I think our business model, which doesn't really require our technicians to handle sales because we pretty much separate sales and technicians, we really attract technicians because the competitors hate, or sorry, they hate working for competitors because they're forced to do inventory, sales, and be a introverted technician. Good techs typically just want to sit in a corner and repair things. They don't want to answer the phone. They don't want to talk to people. They just really want to zone in on what they're good at. So we don't have a huge problem right now, especially in this labor market, attracting good technicians. We actually have a difficult time attracting salespeople that are knowledgeable about IT, right? Finding someone that can, without a lot of training, understand the entire mobile-centrics or Gadget SKU catalog and think about that each one of those parts as a solution is actually a pretty difficult problem to solve. So I hope that maybe over the next few years, our industry embracing AI might not only bring the cost down to consumers because we don't have to pay necessarily for 3 sales reps working in the front on a regular basis, or maybe some stores even one, maybe it could be an automated process. And that can ultimately drive more consumers repairing their devices if the services are even more affordable.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw, if you've been to McDonald's recently,
Yeah, it's
right?
fully automated.
They spent over $100 million building that kiosk.
Wow, I didn't know it was that much.
And they've obviously their scale is huge, but if you look at the problem they're trying to solve, it's much simpler and then trying to quote for a
Yeah.
phone repair, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just saying,
It's a
hey,
hamburger.
how can we make it easy for John to order a hamburger and try
Yeah.
to upsell him 4 times before he goes to the checkout page?
Yeah.
So we'll get there. It's gonna take some investment and some standardization, and I think an effort from everyone together. But we'll get there.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I've told another entrepreneur that I'm friends with in another industry that's it's repair related, but it's not electronics. You know, we had a conversation about what he was asking me essentially like, what should I do for my website? And I said, I think that the way that the LLM the LLMs have changed search engines
Mm-hmm.
where we don't use Google the way we're used to, and that's only going to get worse, right? Like consumers, especially in our industry, aren't seeing repair ads for phone repair anyways. They're seeing Google Shopping ads. And I think the majority of like the search engine marketplaces are going to start pushing people to products. So what does the service industry do when they don't Google doesn't want to send you to a place where you fill out a form.
Mm-hmm.
They want to send you to a merchant that's selling a product, a service as a product.
Yep.
And I really think personally, like in our own company, that's why we've made the changes we've made, because we believe standardizing the services in a product format is probably the future of our industry.
Yeah.
One, because even though we do have 20,000 SKUs, each one of those are very consistent. You know, you think about a car, there are a lot of supplies that are also needed to do those repairs, right? Like lubricants, oils, um, cables, all these other things that we don't necessarily do when we do a screen replacement. The only supply you're really using, other than tools, is like maybe a water resistant seal, right? And that could be an add-on sale. So I'm very confident that the vast majority of SKUs are a one-time use SKU.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's like McDonald's, a lot more SKUs, but we can still standardize it in a way where repair shops, in my belief, should be selling these products, services as products. Your part, your labor, they're individual products that you can purchase on some form of e-commerce platform in a customer-facing way. I think that's how we fix our labor problem as an industry. I think that's how we fix our margin problem as an industry, because it automates everything. And I really love how RepairDesk is kind of helping us enable that. And I hope it can help other repair shops enable it. We ran the the form builder for a long time, which is like XiRepair.com. First name, last name will show you the price, but you can't check out or anything. And we've seen huge declines in our SEO. And we we believe that is mainly because of the way the algorithm has changed. If you search up iPhone 12 screen replacement near me now as a shop owner, you'll notice that it's Google merchant ads at the top. Why? Because I think Google realized merchants that are selling products have systemized SKUs. And if you have systemized SKUs, you're a lot more of a legitimate business than someone who's wheeling and dealing, which is what a lot of shops have been doing. And let's be honest, well, if you come in today, it's $80. If you come in next week, it's $120. You know, a lot of shops don't even have a price sheet. And so I think Google is pushing people towards these options like Amazon, where things are systemized. And I think if you want to be a shop in the next 5 years and compete with that, you've really got to figure out a way to sell your services as products. Define what that means, right? When you do a screen replacement, does that include the water resistant seal? How long does that take? What's the quality that you're offering? What's the warranty on that part? And really define what those things are in a customer facing perspective to really be successful. I think personally the days of just we will and deal and come into the shop and then we'll help you, I don't think that's where the future is going to go. And I think the consumers have also, another aspect of this is the consumers have now become more accustomed to repair shops. You know, for a long time we had first time customers. We're seeing huge amounts of repeats because iPhone 11 a lot and XRs were like the first time certain customer segments got the screen repaired because it was just highly affordable. You know, $80 for an iPhone XR screen or $90 for an 11 in most markets. Now those same customers are getting 12 and 13s repaired, so that they know the process. Now they have more like educated questions on what is this an LCD? Is this an OLED? And I only expect that to increase. Right? People are looking at the repairs online and before they take it into a shop, because you could do a quick Google search or YouTube search and you can see other shops posting videos about it. Consumers are more aware, and I think this product as a service model is where we go, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, great.
And I appreciate everything that RepairDesk is doing for us to be able to have like API access is a big one. I know not everyone gives API access to the software that they use, so it kind of enabled us to build what we've done without necessarily having to ask RepairDesk for permission to check this box or to do this thing. It allowed us to be creative in ways that maybe other software companies wouldn't want, because obviously there's a cost every time we query, right? We understand that, and so we really appreciate that feature for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're making Amazon a little bit richer each time you're doing that, but it's going to happen anyways. But no, we're here for the people. Thank you for everything that you do and for giving us all the feedback and also everything you're doing for the industry. And I think there's if more shop owners were like you all, our life would be a lot easier. We would be having much more fun conversations about APIs and other functionality as opposed to just sticking to the manufacturer images. So we'll get there together.
I want to ask one last question before I get you off. You obviously interact with so many different repair shops and like brands and franchises and stuff. What is like in your opinion, what are maybe one or two things, or maybe more if you have them, that differentiate successful shops from non-successful shops? Because I have my opinions as a shop owner, but I don't have the data of 1,500 other repair shops.
Yeah, no, it's actually really simple. It's when I look at the repair shops that are most successful, they've got a couple things, right? Number one is a much higher average ticket. And a lot of times, all they're doing is asking, "Hey, John, you broke your phone. Do you want me to install this tempered glass? It'll be an extra $30, right?" And like some of those sales are very simple, right? Because we all know the most common repair is screen repair, and we know the most common accessory you can sell is tempered glass, right, or whatever you call it. And if you're just like you were saying, it's hard to find good salespeople. If whenever I walk into a shop and I interact with the salesperson, even if I don't look at their sales, within 10 minutes, I can tell you on average what their sales are going to be, because one or two good people can make all the difference, right? So it's just having that average ticket go up, because you can only control foot traffic or your SEO so much, right? So once you get people in the door, you have to convert them at every point that you can. And we have a couple of features in RepairDesk that allow you to do right add-ons and stuff that just make it easier.
Bundles is a great one.
Make it easier for the employees, and that's a big one. I think the second is understanding your market and making sure you offer all the services that your local customers need. Right? I see some stores and I get scared for them where probably 70% of their revenue is screen repairs, right? And that's scary. Because if you may remember, I was an Apple nerd and I waited in line for the first 5 iPhones, and those used to break, pretty much on a 6-month timer. You would break it. So and the market can change to a point where that revenue could dry up. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but right over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, either it dries up or your margins go so low that you can't afford workers' comp or employees, and then you kind of get burnt out. So I think those are the two big drivers. But I think a lot of it just goes down to having some good salespeople, and if you can train them yourself, that'll go a long way.
That's very helpful. I know I said last question, but one last thing, I promise. What can we do as an industry to? I know that we have like Tech Care Association, we have the Gadget Repair Expo, we have the WISE Association. Is there any association that you guys would feel comfortable, maybe not, you may not be willing to say the name, but is there an association or a group that you guys are comfortable or willing to give blind data to? Because this is something that I've talked with the vendors a lot about. As a repair shop owner, I think there's a lot of value in the data that RepairDesk is collecting and the data that Mobile Centrics is collecting on sales and transactions to be public, even if the data is blind, meaning we can't see customer information. We can't see necessarily what markets as a whole, like maybe my shop just fills in Alabama as a whole without you telling everyone this is what the Montgomery market is doing per se. Is there a way that we can move towards having that blind data available as an industry? And is this something you might think would be helpful?
Well, absolutely. I think as long as we have the customer's consent, which I'm sure they would be okay with, because we would be able to provide value back to them.
Sure.
Right. So, for example, if you're an Airbnb host, if you share your data with them of your listing, they'll give you what everybody else close to you is charging. Right. So I'm sure there's a lot of different features like that would add value, especially if you combine the RepairDesk data and the supplier data.
Great point.
We've had some conversations with some organizations and some suppliers around it. I think it's just a matter of getting it done because technically it's a very hard problem because the data, at least from the POS side, I know is not the cleanest because we still have some shops that are just saying
It's not
miscellaneous repair,
standardized,
right?
yeah.
If you look at their repair services for the month, 80% of it will be miscellaneous repair. And that's
iPhone
not going to help
service,
anyone.
but what was
Yeah.
serviced?
Exactly. So yeah, 100% agreed. There's a lot of value there. We just need to figure out how to implement it properly.
I think, yeah, I absolutely agree. And you brought up pricing. So many don't know, I've told you privately last night, we own Airbnb properties in our area. And we have a small portfolio that we manage. And I have just grown to really appreciate how fast that industry matured with like systemizing pricing, for example, because we use companies like Price Labs. It's a specific pricing software company for that industry. And I've actually pulled some ideas from them because like if let's say our property, there's like a weird date in October every year where we have like a big national state fair, and this algorithm is able to like spot that and see that there's a huge spike in demand, and thus those dates 6 months in advance up to 1 week in advance are always way more expensive without me ever having to touch an operation or slide a bar to say my nightly rate should be more expensive. And this is one of the reasons why in my own shop, we are implementing standard and express service rates, because we realized this past year, customers, like telling a customer that they have to wait 2 or 3 days on average for an iPad, some people are okay with that and they were going to come to us anyways, but a lot of customers are willing to pay extra to have that done same day. And where I'm going with this is I would love RepairDesk or just an industry insider to come along and help build a pricing software that can see demand, whether it's at your own shop or at least in that area, to maybe tinker with if shops are doing like we do, which I think should be an industry standard of having an express rate based on how busy your shop is. Almost kind of like what Wendy's tried with what did they call it? It was like busy hour fee or whatever. I don't know if you know, but Wendy's specifically, like for a short period, they a lot of their stores, if there was like 2 to 4, they had more like cheaper pricing, and the menu pricing actually changed on their digital screen between like 4 and 6. And if you think about it from a business perspective, with margins being so small, this is how you actually pick up on those additional revenue increases. Because when customers come in, like as a repair shop, we can only do two things: sell you a part and sell you a service. There's no other variables in the current model. And personally, I think there's a lot of value that can be added by basically charging for speed of service. How quick do you want it done? But anyways, yeah, I just thought that might be an interesting thought experiment, because we see that being done in a lot of other industries that are a little bit different, but similar in the same of, we are selling a product and we can there's a variance in that product depending on the time of the year. Like last Christmas, to be specific, we increased our express rate when we realized that there was a threshold we just weren't able to hit. We got so busy this past Christmas over like a 2-week period. It was like, all right, now our $40 express fee is going to be $80 because we can't fulfill what we currently have, and customers were still paying it because they were desperate to get their device done before going on holidays or that sort of thing. But anyways, man, I really appreciate having you on. I hope you guys go check out repairdesk.co. There's I believe it's been a while since I created an account because I've been with you guys since 2018, but I think there's a contact us button, right, for signing up?
Yeah. If you sign up, there's a free trial button. We'll talk to you. We'll kind of show you around, and then if you want to test drive it, you can for as long as you want. And it's a pretty easy process.
I think it's important to say that a lot of shop owners that I've told to get a POS system, whether it's RepairDesk or whatever you pick, I'm biased, obviously, but I think a lot of shop owners don't want to pull the trigger because like they're solo guys and they don't see the value. I had numerous people tell me yesterday, Jonathan, I don't see the value as a shop owner for taking pictures and doing pre-tests. Like, I know it. I don't have to remember it because someone else is doing it. And I'd love to see if you're in agreement with me on this, but I tell them, I think that's a very immature mindset, because you just may not realize it yet that when you hire an employee, you don't just suddenly change your habits. And it's really beneficial as a repair shop owner, even if it takes more time out of your schedule, whether that's just 5 minutes to just do pre-post checklists, to put serial numbers, etc. Because if you plan on scaling or growing your business, and I hope you do if you're a business owner, you're going to get to that point at some point.
Absolutely. And you want to, right? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to go to Egypt or Turkey for a week. You're going to be stuck at your shop and just scraping by.
Absolutely. Yeah, those trips for me have like really changed my perspective as a business owner, just because you realize, oh shit, I have to have things in place because I'm not here. I'm in a different time zone. You know, in a way, I always encourage people to travel as a business owner. Force yourself to do it because it's going to force you to have a better business.
100%.
You know, a lot of people just don't. They're like, oh, I can't ever leave. It's my baby. It's like, no, like you got to give your kids some space to grow on their own. Your business is kind of the same way, but you got to train them to survive on their own, right? Your business is the same way.
Absolutely.
So. But thank you for this. I hope some of the repair shops listening go reach out to you guys and definitely at least get a free trial and see what RepairDesk can offer.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Cool. And to be transparent, this was not sponsored at all. So this is just me giving advice. So awesome, man.
Sean.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
it.